Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah, and today I'm going to give you a summer plant update. Before we jump into it, if you are new here, welcome. Take a moment, hit that subscribe button. I try to post plant-related videos every week. Usually ends up being on a Sunday, so if that kind of content is interesting to you, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you join me. So like I said, today is going to be kind of a summer plant update. I'm going to take you around and talk about how some of my plants are doing. It's kind of a plant tour, but I did just do my Hoya tour, so I will kind of be skipping over those Hoyas. Unless I have a new one, I'll go ahead and throw that in. But for the most part, I will go ahead and link to that Hoya tour. You can watch that if you're specifically interested in all the Hoyas that I have. This tour will encompass pretty much everything else. I'm not quite sure how long this is going to be, so it may become a two-part sort of tour. If it is, you probably already know that from the title. Just know if it gets a little bit long, I may be splitting this into two parts. I also will not be including any of the plants that are in my propagation box right now. I did just do a little tour of what was in my propagation box, how I set all of that up, and I probably will give you an update if that's of interest to you guys, probably within the next couple of weeks here, but in the interest of time, I'm also excluding my propagation box from today's tour. That being said, there's still plenty of plants to talk about, so let's go ahead and jump right into the tour. As always, I'm going to go ahead and start this tour here in my bedroom. There are fewer plants here. I'll make my way over to my plant room, which has some more plants in it. Here next to my bed, I just have this baby orchid. This is one that has those beautiful kind of dark purple, almost like cherry cola kind of colored flowers to it. You can see, hopefully you can see, there's a little bud there. It's doing okay here. Probably needs to move with my other orchids under my grow lights at some point. But it did just drop its flowers probably about a week, 2 weeks ago, somewhere in there. So it's just living here next to my bed for now. And then if we pan over here, next to my window, you will see my ZZ Raven. This plant is doing so well. You can see a little bit of damage on the leaves from when it was shipped to me, but it has put out a couple of new stalks. Since then, it's doing really, really well. This is the one that I ordered off of Amazon from Costa Farms, and it has just been doing wonderfully. I've also repotted it because the roots were starting to come out of the bottom, and I've taken one or two little divisions off of it. It was, like I said, so full. So I took a couple little divisions to give to a couple of friends of mine. But overall, it is doing really, really well. So this is my corner next to my Hoya SP Affinity Burtonii, which I'm not going to talk about today. But down here, I have my snake plant. Nothing special, just needed something for this corner. I've had this one for a while. I actually had two and I combined them both into one pot. So you can see it's not necessarily a plant that I take excellent care of, but it does really well in this corner. And eventually I'd like to put something on this little table, maybe one of my philodendrons. But right now everything is kind of where it needs to be for the best light and stuff. But yeah, I have a little snake plant here in this corner right here. And then the last plant that I have in this room is my Calathea. Where's Wishy Eye? I love this plant, you guys, but I just struggle with this particular Calathea. Calatheas in general don't do super hot here. It is very dry, and I don't have a humidifier in this particular room. You can see I have one of my little watering things in there to try to keep the moisture levels up. But even so, I've just struggled keeping it happy. So you can see there's a little bit of new growth here and a new leaf coming in here. But overall, I tend to kind of like forget about it, and then I'll be laying on my bed and I'll see that it's getting a little wilty, and I add a little more water. So I will keep continuing to care for it, but this is my second Calathea. I think my first one had some sort of an infection, and this one it's just struggling. I'm struggling with the watering. I'm just, especially during the school year, I'm not at home enough to kind of keep up those water levels. So we'll see if I can bring it back to being healthy, but overall, this one, just I personally struggle with the care on it. All right, and then I have this little corner right here. My little propagation station. This is a little bit of Maranta in here. You can see there's a root and a little bit of new growth. So this was a dying leaf that came off of my red prayer plant. And you can see it's actually putting on a little bit of growth. It doesn't look great in there, but it actually, hopefully you can see there's a little leaf coming out in there. Next to that, I have my Peperomia Ruby Cascade. I just have a little baby cutting of this. It's rooted. It probably needs to be potted up, but for right now, I'm just kind of leaving it here in my propagation station. Next to that, a couple pieces of Hoya linearis that are rooting, and a couple other, I think that's a Neon Pothos and a Hoya Crimson Princess in there. Most of these are things that just kind of came off, or I cut them off with the linearis. You can see it's missing a bunch of leaves in there, so I cut them off for aesthetic reasons, and I just kind of stuck them in here. I just let them grow, and then if somebody wants one, I take it out of here and replace it with a new plant. All right, well, I'll start up here with this disaster. This is my ponytail palm, and I just can't nail the watering on this one. It probably also needs more light. It gets okay light here, but it probably could use a little bit more. Between just trying to get the watering right, it doesn't love a lot of water because of that thick trunk, but it also needs some water. And then I don't love pulling out all those little dead and dying leaves. So even though it might be healthy, it looks worse than it is. So I'm not sure how I feel about the ponytail palm. It might be one that doesn't show up in a future tour. I like the way they look so much, but just for me, I don't know. It's not in my wheelhouse to take care of necessarily. Next to that, my Manjula Pothos. It's looking okay. You might be able to see a couple of kind of like yellowing or crisping leaves in there. It's a pothos, it'll be fine. I just haven't given it very much attention. I just kind of bought it from a big box store because I love the way these leaves look. And I just kind of stuck it here. So I probably need to repot it, put it in some better soil, just give it a little bit of care. But for right now, I think it's fine. It's, you know, it's not looking beautiful, but it's not gonna die on me. And when I have a little more time and a little more attention to devote to this plant, it will definitely be one that gets a little special TLC. And then below that, I have my Pothos Marble Queen, almost getting to Snow Queen, right? It's got that really high variegation here in some sections. It's doing really well in this spot. This one was above my kitchen counters, kitchen cabinets, and yeah, I moved it here because I thought it would fill in this kind of space really nicely, and it's put on a ton of growth since being here, so I think it's getting just a little bit more light, and it really appreciates that. And then below that, I know I'm not talking about my Hoyas today, but my Hoya Crimson Princess lives in that little corner right there for right now. And here is my Alocasia Ivory Coast. You can see kind of some crisping around the edges where I wasn't doing the best at taking care of watering. I also think I had it in the wrong soil mix for a while, so when I did some of my repotting this summer, I actually repotted this one again. And I think it's doing a lot better. It's put on some new growth for me and it seems happier. But yeah, I think before that, I think it was holding too much moisture and it wasn't really happy. But this one, I've said this a couple times, is a super easy care plant, or at least I have found it super easy care, super forgiving. This is one of the first houseplants I had before I was even into houseplants. And I would ignore it. I would give it inconsistent water and it never died on me. So it's lived in this spot just forever. And you can see these huge glossy leaves. It is super forgiving and probably will always stay here just because it has been super loyal to me. So I'm going to be super loyal to it. All right, I'm going to try not to get too much of my kitchen mess, but I wanted to talk about my red Maranta. This one's another one that's super easy care, especially if you like the Calathea, the prayer plant family, but you struggle with their care. This one I have never had any problems with. He just lives right here and is super happy. Usually kind of gets a little bit dried out in between waterings, again, just because of my busy schedule, and zero problems. And these beautiful leaves that always entertain me with their movement from day to night. So yeah, I would highly recommend if you can get your hands on a red prayer plant. They grow super fast and they're super easy care. Up here is my pearls and jade pothos that I do have in semi-hydro. I have taken so many cuttings, so really when this strand gets super long, sometimes it gets, way down here, something like that, I'll take a cutting, make a few little baby plants. And you can probably hear Loki being entertaining in the background. But yeah, this one has done so well in semi-hydro. This is one of the first ones that I converted over, and it has done super well. And like I said, I've taken cuttings from kind of here at the edge several times since it's been here. It just grows like a weed and it looks beautiful in that location. And then if I come down here to my little bookshelf, you can see that I have my little Scindapsus pictus. I have several cuttings of this one around the house. I take cuttings fairly often, but it seems like I can never really get rid of them. It seems like they grow so well and they do so well in so many different locations, the dark locations, things like that, that I just end up with a bunch of little baby plants. I think I have one in my room that I didn't show you guys that again lives on kind of a dark corner of a dark bookshelf, but it does super well. And then over here is my Monstera adansonii, which I repotted this summer when I repotted my giant Monstera deliciosa. So it's on a pole now, as you can see. A nice tall pole, give it lots of room to grow. And because I had repotted it, it kind of took a little break, I guess. It wasn't really putting out new growth. It wasn't dying. It just, it was adjusting to its new home. And now you can see this new growth and this new growth probably have all been, I would guess, within the past 2 or 3 weeks. So it's now starting to grow. And I found once this one starts to grow, I can't get it to stop, which actually is good. This one I take a lot of cuttings of because it's still pretty popular, pretty in demand. So I try to take cuttings when it's getting overgrown. I'm hoping it will grow up the pole and start to get some more of these big leaves as it starts to climb up the pole. But yeah, that's my Monstera adansonii. All right, here is my variegated Maranta plant. This one also is in Leca. This was kind of an experiment. I wasn't sure how a Maranta would do, but it's done pretty well. Most of this damage that you're seeing on the leaves is older damage. I just need to trim it away. And that's always good practice to trim away some of the older leaves so that you can actually see what's going on with the new growth. Like I said, I've been busy going back to school, right? So I haven't gotten around to doing that, but you can see there's some new growth kind of in there and in there. Hopefully you can see that. It's doing really well. I did repot it and resize it up to a slightly bigger pot, and the root system was crazy on this plant. So it's pretty happy here. And it lives right next to one of my humidifiers. So it does pretty well. Like I said, there's just some leaves in there that cosmetically I need to trim off. But yeah, overall doing really, really well in the semi-hydro. Okay, I've actually climbed up on my kitchen counters so that you can see the ones that are up above a little bit better. So these are on top of my kitchen cabinets. Right, you can tell kind of a little bit of a dark area, but I like the look of these up here, and these are all plants that do a little bit better in lower light. I also sometimes will turn on the kitchen lights in the evenings and just leave those on for several hours just for a tiny bit of supplemental light for them. So here we have my Pothos Cebu Blue, one of my favorites. This one was struggling a little bit. It was actually a little further back there. Didn't love that. So I've moved it here where it's getting a little more light, and it's actually, you can see it's growing that direction. It's growing towards the light, and the leaves are getting a little bit bigger with a little more light. So yeah, my Cebu Blue doing pretty well, starting to actually put out some decent new growth for me. Okay, I'm now right up next to my air conditioning vent, so if you can hear it in the background, I'm sorry. This is a new addition for me. This is my Scindapsus pictus exotica, and you can see just how big these leaves are. They're huge. I got this for $12 at the grocery store. I wasn't going to leave it sitting at the grocery store at that price. I absolutely adore these giant leaves. It has done pretty well. this is new growth here. I've probably had it for about 2 months now. That's new growth. You can see some new growth coming in right there. A couple of these down here are also newer leaves. So yeah, it's doing really well up here. It really likes this kind of little dark corner. I found the Scindapsuses tend to do even a little bit better than the pothos do in lower light. So yeah, it's been doing pretty well. It just sits up here and has these giant leaves and looks really cool on top of my kitchen cabinets. And next to that, you can see my Philodendron Brazil putting out these awesome neon yellow leaves. And this one also is in semi-hydro. So yeah, this one has been doing super well. I was worried that it was reverting back here and I was gonna have to move it, but all of these brand new leaves tell me it's doing just fine. So yeah, it's doing well. It's gonna keep living here. And yeah, hopefully it will start putting out some bigger leaves in the very near future. And then if we come over this direction, and now I am right underneath the air conditioning vent, so again, sorry if you can hear that. This is my neon pothos. This one just grows like crazy. You have a little runner kind of right there, if I can get it to focus. And a little runner right there. Yeah, this one does really, really well. I take lots of cuttings from this one because it grows a lot. Yeah, this one grows quite well up here. I actually think I featured this in my kind of unique plants for low light situations. It's got that bright neon yellow color and it looks really nice in kind of a darker corner of your home. And then up here, my Philodendron Micans, which I've taken lots of cuttings from. Hopefully I will stick a couple of those back up here in the top. You can see it's a little bit thin here on the top, but then it grows down and down and over here and down. And once it starts growing, it does not stop growing. So yeah, this one's doing really well. Like I said, I just want to take a couple of those cuttings once they're rooted and stick them back up in here in the top, maybe fill in a little bit in the top. But yeah, this one doing really well here. And then here in my really dark entryway from the garage, I have my ZZ plant, just my regular green ZZ plant. This one, again, another really tried and true. I stick it in this dark corner. It just grows. You can see some new growth there. Some of the older leaves are turning yellow. Again, that's just me not having the time to really do plant maintenance. Not really anything to be concerned about. And yeah, this one just lives in this corner. I water it. Oh, it's probably every like 3 or 4 weeks whenever I happen to think of it. And it just thrives for me. So way to go, ZZ plant.